The following program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit AbsoluteLoans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information. You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. Sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 2nd show. I'm your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but I'm here to answer any questions that you have or connect you with the guests that I have in studio. Please call into the show 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And today's show is all about successful real estate stories. A lot of times we hear things that don't go so well when buying real estate. So I thought it'd be great to swap it up a little bit and talk about all the things that do go well. In some situations you might think would end badly, they actually can end very good. And so I've got top industry leaders in our local market here to share their stories with us. Sandi Tampa with Windermere Bellevue Commons, and also Erin Hoppe with Windermere Bellevue Commons. So it's going to be a great show, great information. If you're thinking about buying real estate or you're in the real estate market right now, please listen to the show. I know that you're going to pick up at least one tip, if not more, to make sure that your process and your buying experience is successful. And let's go ahead and start the show, as always, with a little money chat.
Money.
And since today's show is about successful real estate, I thought I would talk about successful financing. And the topic is going to be on the pre-approval process. So there's a lot of nightmare stories that you hear about the pre-approval process. So I wanted to give you some advice on how to make this process go smoothly. Now, you might be asking, how can you have a bad experience during the pre-approval process? Nothing's really happening. You're not shopping for a home. You're not closing on a home. Well, how you can have a bad experience during the pre-approval process is when you go to shop for a home, your pre-approval does not go through or your financing falls apart. Now, it's important to understand what pre-approval means. Pre-approval is a solid loan commitment from a lender. Going through underwriting, verifying all your income, your assets, everything's getting verified and then determined based on what you can actually pre-approve for. But it is a pre-approval. Pre-approval meaning it's subject to all of this information being verified at the time that you secure and move forward during the closing process. So here's something you want to remember is you don't want to make any changes to employment, income, assets, liability, or credit. So income, employment, income, assets, liability, or credit. The information is based on, your pre-approval is based on the information that's provided at loan application. So yes, if you make any changes to employment, income, assets, liability, or credit, it can definitely affect your pre-approval, maybe making an adjustment to the amount that you can pre-approve for, or completely eliminating the ability to be able to get financing based on something that you've done. Now, a lot of times you can make changes in your current financial situation that you cannot repair, and you're in a position not to move forward and purchase and close on that home. So a takeaway from this is just to make sure that you're communicating with your mortgage and consultant to make sure before you make changes on how it's going to affect your actual pre-approval. Now, let's go ahead and break some of these things down. Let's talk about employment. So employment might be that you're currently working for as an actual employee right now. And let's just say that you're a software developer, software engineer. I think there's a few of you that might be listening that are software engineer. Now, there's a lot of opportunities in that arena to do contract work. Now, as a contractor, you actually may make a higher income than actually being an employee for, let's just say, through Microsoft. The problem is if you don't have a history of working contract work for at least minimum 2 years, you don't have an income to use. There's nothing to average over that 2-year period of time. You have to have a history of receiving that income. So what you've done is you've taken yourself from a position to where you're pre-approving at, I don't know, maybe $100,000, $120,000 a year to not having any income at all. So unless you can put yourself back in a full-time position at a company, your financing is no longer going to go through. So a simple conversation would be to pick up the phone and find out. And here's what you need to do is just strategize on your timing. Once you own a home and you have closed on that mortgage, you can do anything you want with your personal financial situation. As long as you make your mortgage payment, nothing's going to happen to that loan. It's anything before you actually close and secure that loan and move into your home. So second is income. Now, income can be, tricky as well if you don't understand how the financial arena works. Again, let's use this same example, but with a little different spin on it. Let's say that you are an employee that gets a guaranteed salary and you're making $60,000 a year. And now let's say you're not changing employment or employers, you're going to stay at the same employer, but you're actually taking on a different position, a better position, meaning that in this situation, better meaning a higher potential of income. So you think by advancing into this new position, your income is going up, you're with the same employer, how would anything change in a negative fashion? Well, if that is not a guaranteed salary position, but instead, maybe it's a guaranteed salary, but it's a small salary. So you're going to get $30,000 base salary, and then you're going to be making commissions on top of it. Now, not only are you know that you're going to be making commissions, but they actually have documentation to show you how much other people in that sales position, and maybe even conservative people in that sales position, are making in commission. And you look at the difference between that commission potential. Even with that low base salary, it's going to be a lot more than what you were doing at a $60,000 base salary. It doesn't matter because you don't have a history of receiving commission income for 2 years. So without that 2-year history, the only income that's going to be utilized to approve you for your mortgage now is your new $30,000 base. So you just cut your income in half for approval. This can be devastating in the process of securing your financing when you actually find a home. So here's on income. Anything that's not guaranteed, they want to see a history for 2 years. If you're a salary employee, you're making $30,000 today and you move to another position after consulting with your mortgage consultant to make sure everything's going to be okay, and you have an increase to $60,000, you're going to get qualified based at $60,000 income because it's a guaranteed salary. It's things that are not guaranteed. Commission, overtime. You can't go take on a part-time job, and if you don't have a history of working 2 part-time jobs, you can't use that additional income. Opening a business, you can't use business income unless you have a history of receiving that income. Bonus income can't be used unless you have a history of bonus income. And just in positions in getting signing bonuses, or Amazon's got a lot of creative ways to pay coming in new employment into Amazon to where you're getting stock for part of your salary. That can't be used unless you have a history of actually showing that you've been cashing and liquidating that stock. So if it's a little bit confusing how financing works, it's okay. That's why you have a mortgage professional there to walk you through the process. It's just understanding you want to be communicating with them with any of these changes that might come up from the time that you get pre-approved all the way till the time that you actually physically close on that home loan. Now, down payment or assets. So assets, one of it being down payment. If you are letting your mortgage consultant know that your down payment is coming from one source, let's say money in your bank, or let's say gift funds from a family member, that's acceptable on almost all loans. You just want to communicate if that's going to be changing as far as your gift. What if you decide that you're going to change to borrow from a credit card? Well, that's not okay. And a question that a lot of times you may ask is, well, why does it really matter where the money comes from? I've got the money. I'm going to provide the money. It does matter. Everything has to be verified where those funds are coming from. So communicate as far as your down payment if you make changes. Reserves. You may not even know that your pre-approval was based on the fact that you had 12 months in reserves for mortgage payments. Now, your traditional loan wants 2 months of mortgage payments left over after closing. You don't have to It's not coming into the bank, but you have to have it in order to close. FHA, you don't need any, but there are loans that require 6 months, 12 months of reserves. If you're making any changes to the money that you have left over after closing, I know it may not make sense, but it could have a big impact on your loan. So check with your mortgage consultant first before you go spend that money. Deposits into your account, any deposits that can't directly be verified from payroll, money coming from the IRS, something that can be paper trailed. Cash is a bad thing. You don't want to be depositing cash in your bank account unless you can paper trail and verify back, which it's kind of hard to do that on cash. So any changes on your assets, check with your mortgage consultant. Liabilities, obviously, in purchasing anything new from what you originally had at your debt is going to affect your approval. It's going to affect it dollar for dollar. So if you get a new car payment for $500 a month, now you pre-approve for $500 a month, less than a mortgage payment. Huge impact on your buying potential. credit, all I can say is credit, don't make any changes. I'm going to leave you hanging a little bit here because I've got to take us to commercial, but you would think paying off collection would be a good thing. Let me tell you, paying off collections accounts can be devastating to your credit score, and you cannot replace that. You can't fix that once you've done it. So call me if you have any questions. If you're in the middle of buying and you've got any challenges, that's really what the Money Hour is all about. It's here to help you in any area regarding your finances. I happen to be the expert on mortgages, so if you need my assistance, please call into the show, 1-855-400-1150, or online at themoneyhour.com. Coming up next on the Money Hour, we're here to not talk about nightmare real estate stories, but we're here to talk about success real estate stories. Sandi, Tampa, and Erin, Hoppe with Windermere Bellevue Commons right here on 1150 AM KKNW after the short break.
Curiosity changes the world. What are you curious about? What if you could discover how to be more, do more, and have more? Not sometime in the future, in the right now. You will discover practical tools on May 7th at the Tea Palace in Renton that create hope, growth, and purpose in the moment. Join Ringmaster Danny Wynn as he takes you on a musical, entertaining, and transformative adventure intertwined with 8 successful thought leaders who will present on different aspects of productively living your dream now. Take a break from your routine, get out of your normal day-to-day, and discover what is truly possible for you. If not now, when? Proceeds benefit our local youth suicide prevention program. When you sign up now, you not only get to discover how to live your best life, your investment can save a life. Go to thatcuriositything.com and sign up today. That's thatcuriositything.com. Still curious? Again, thatcuriositything.com.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 2nd show. I bring into studio each week the best of the best experts in all local, everything regarding your money in our local market. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint in today's economy. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but you can always call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150. or online at themoneyhour.com. I can answer any questions. Anything regarding financing, I've got the experts to answer those questions if it's not relating to mine, which is mortgage expertise. In studio, I want to introduce my guest, Sandi Tampa and Erin Hoppe with Windermere Bellevue Commons. Today's show is all about buyers and sellers and the real estate market and how to have a successful story versus a nightmare story. And I remember hearing a statistic not too long ago, and I don't have anything to back it up and where it was, but I remember reading it somewhere that 30% of mortgages don't close. Now, that's just in my arena. I don't, and I'm sure there's a combination of a lot of different reasons. Financing falls through, people back out, but there's I know that there's a big piece of the process in my arena as well as in yours in real estate that don't turn out so swell. And so I thought it would be really exciting to have some success stories. So thanks you guys for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice to be here.
And I want to give you a little bit of background. I'm going to start with Sandi. Sandi is a skilled veteran with 10 years residential real estate experience. She is based in Bellevue and primary focuses on the east side. Sandi is highly accredited managing broker. Her credentials include accredited buyer representative, certified residential specialist, and master certified negotiation expert. What does this mean to you? It means that she's dedicated to being the best she can be to serve you and your referrals with the highest level of professionalism and skill possible. That's why she's here in studio. Sandi specializes in appealing her local experience and market knowledge to her business. Experienced negotiation and cutting-edge marketing strategies combined with uncompromising integrity is the trademark of Sandi's service. Sandi has worked with every facet of the industry representing sellers, buyers, and investors. Thanks again, Sandi, for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Excited for my listeners to hear from you. And also I have Erin Hoppe with over 23 years of real estate experience. Erin has worked in the Bellevue Commons office of Windermere for over half of her career, which is unusual because people just seem to be swapping around. And it's nice that you found a great company and really loyal to that company. From a receptionist while in college to a successful sales agent for 2 decades, she has proven to be not only an expert in real estate, but a trusted advocate for her clients. Nothing is more valuable than proven experience. Years and years of situations have taught her what works and what doesn't work, enabling her to get the best result for her clients in any circumstance. This strong knowledge and confidence has led Erin's success as a service and results-driven professional. Erin, as well, great bio, and just I'm very excited to have both of you in studio today. Erin, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And it's going to be fun. I love stories, and I want to start out with Erin. You had a single dad story, and I mean, there's tons of stories that we have, and we only have so much time today. But I want to talk about your single dad, and he'd lost out on 3 offers, and you would think by losing out on 3 offers that is not something that we can talk about as being successful. Can you share why that was successful?
Sure. One of the things I think that is important when you're working with a buyer is to give them a ton of information, and they're in charge of making the decisions. So if they have a choice to say, no, thanks, I'll pass on this house because they chose to me, that's a success. If they are surprised by the result that they didn't get the house because they didn't have enough information, that to me is not good. So we try to give everybody as much information as we can. He was a really great guy and was trying to get him into his son into a school in Issaquah. So there was a lot of homes that were going way over asking. So we knew going in what the most likely outcome would be.
And, you know, Erin, that's many reasons why I have the two of you here, but I really, the show is focusing on industry leaders. Industry leaders are passionate about what they're doing and passionate about helping our community. And unfortunately in sales, any sales, it doesn't matter if it's real estate or any other sales, that sometimes a lot of the, a portion of the industry is not working for the consumer's best interest. And what I hear from this, it's really educating your client that this is really what you need and what you out of the market. And because this isn't for you, then let me help you be successful and not move forward and close on this.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And when we finally did find the right house, he was completely prepared and ready, and so the whole process went really smooth.
Yeah, that is awesome. So I want to say call to action, but it's not a call to action, but just something to think about. If you are a buyer out there right now and you're not finding the right home, don't rush into anything and find a good realtor that's really going to help listen to what your needs are and is going to help coach and counsel you. And Erin, I know that you're kind of known as the real estate therapist, you know. And really, that's what your real estate agent has, many, many hats that they wear. And one being important to really listen and find out what your needs are so that they can coach and counsel you. And you're going to end up getting a home, and you're going to end up getting the right home if you're working with the right representation. So Sandi, loan options. We know, especially in our arena meaning you in real estate and me in financing, that the loan program that you actually choose to go with can make a difference on whether you get that offer accepted.
Absolutely.
And we're used to hearing the negative stories of why the offer was not accepted. Oh, because you were going with an FHA loan. And if you're listening, an FHA loan is a great loan to go with. But everybody in the industry knows that it's mainly first-time home buyers. It's low down payment. It's down payment assistance might be attached to it. Challenging credit can get in on an FHA, whereas you can't on a traditional conventional. So it has this perception behind it. Appraisal value might be bad. So share one of your many success stories with a buyer that went with financing that was FHA and still had a good experience.
Yeah, right. And so another challenge with the FHA product when you're dealing with multiple offers with an FHA buyer, there's some myth and emotion that the appraisal is going to be more complicated. And I think that that's based on some old information, and the process is actually much more similar to conventional than it used to be.
It is. It used to be that on a conventional loan, you could just drive by and wave at the house and leave. Well, those days are over after the financial meltdown. So yes, the appraiser has to do the same work as they would on an FHA loan. Within reason. There's a couple little tiny things, but nothing that's going to be major at all.
So I had this situation with my buyers, and there were 3 offers. We were all identical. Which often happens. We're all at the same price.
Okay.
Dealing with 2 conventionals. We were the FHA, and I actually even had. And so the listing agent was worried about appraisal on the home. So she was calling around trying to talk to each of us. I actually had an escalator for my clients to go up $10,000 more that they were ready to use, but that wasn't the issue here. So I was able to hang on to that escalator clause, get their lender involved. Their lender talked to the listing agent. And the good news, too, was the listing agent was very astute. And she knew that her sellers are going to net the same amount of money no matter what loan product there was using.
Got it.
So it was the buyer's lender who was able to talk to the points of FHA, that it's a great cash management tool, and that these buyers are rock solid and will close.
And that, it's so huge. It's all about the communication. It's all about the education, and it's all about the presentation. And if it weren't for the fact, Sandi, that you had a great presentation and a great way to presenting an offer, there's no way that you could have overcome that challenge. I mean, you've got a conventional buyer and an FHA buyer, and they're the same offer. It makes no sense that could end up being like it was if it weren't for the fact of your skills. So there's a way to be successful in almost everything if it's the right house for you and you've got the right people working for you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And have you had any success, Erin, on your side with what have you seen with different types of loan programs?
Well, I think having a great lender is probably the most important first step you can do. And I think what Sandi just said, having that particular lender call the other agent was huge. It makes a big difference. I know as a listing agent, when people step up and do that for me, it makes me feel more comfortable. You know that they're going to close.
And would you imagine that, I would imagine that the reputation that Sandi has in her local market, as well as you, makes a difference in these challenging situations as well.
Oh, it does. What comes around goes around. And after 23 years, you always get it.
You kind of run into each other.
Do.
So if you're listening and you actually kind of think about it, just common sense. I mean, if you've that real estate agent that works on the other side of the transaction, representing the seller or representing the buyer, just depending on what market we're in and whether it's a buyer's or seller market, you've got two realtors, and when you've been doing business, like you said, for so long, you know each other. And so the reputation that you have and the relationship that you have with the real estate community and your co-partners is a huge impact on whether that offer is going to be accepted or not.
Absolutely.
Especially when everything is all equal. So, Erin, let's talk about when as a seller, when you've got a list of things that need to be done to a property, and I know that you had some recent buyers that you've worked with that a lot of things needed to be done to the property. They're getting to that next stage in their life. They're in their 70s, and that can be kind of a traumatic process, and there can be a lot of issues that come up at the end, devastating issues, especially when you're transitioning into that next step in life. So could you share your story?
Sure. I had a family, they were older and had adopted a daughter. They're in their 70s, and they had a daughter that was getting ready to go to college. So they had a home that was much larger. They really needed to downsize out of financially, not necessarily size. They had moved multiple times, had a 10,000 square foot home to a 7,500. Now they're in a 5,000, but still have that much stuff.
Wow.
So being older, they had a lot of memories, a lot of things. And we went through our process, and even though they didn't want to hear it, we went through the whole thing and went through the staging and the pre-inspection, which is really important. They did all the repairs, even put a new roof on. We staged it to a point where we knew the buyer coming in would be a more modern buyer, younger taste. So we did all of those things and got the right buyer and younger buyer, but they were able to sell after all of our processes that we went through. Staging was key for that. And I think with the older seller specifically, they have a lot of stuff. Usually. So it's important to be honest with them and talk them through the process and help them get through, whether it's putting stuff into storage. Just helping them get through that process. So.
And I think, Erin, helping them get through the process is an understatement of what you did in this story, because with these, when you're in that time of your life and you're going through that traumatic change of downsizing and all of you really have to approach it at a place that is helpful and a place that is not going to be intimidating, or because in this industry there's a lot of stuff that's going on. There's not a lot of time. Everything had to be done yesterday, and to really counsel and walk them through that in a way that you're not rushing and you're just communicating with them in a way to help them get to that next stage is huge.
It is, and I think just spending a lot of time one-on-one, really having those conversations. And everybody's different. They communicate differently. Usually the 70 seller or buyer isn't on email 24/7 like the 20-something buyers. So it's a lot of long hours of face-to-face meetings and just walking them through, listening to what their pain is and what that means to them. It's different for everybody.
And I like the fact that you're working with sellers that are 70, but you're actually prepping their home for the generation that's coming in, that's in their young ages.
That's just coming out.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So coming up next in the Money Hour, hear more success stories with my two amazing realtors in studio. And we're talking everything real estate, a local real estate agent, Sandi Tampa and Erin Hoppe with Windermere Bellevue Commons right here on 1150 AM KKNW after the short break.
Curiosity changes the world. What are you curious about? What if you could discover how to be more, do more, and have more? Not sometime in the future, in the right now. You will discover practical tools on May 7th at the Tea Palace in Renton that create hope, growth, and purpose in the moment. Join Ringmaster Danny Wynn as he takes you on a musical, entertaining, and transformative adventure intertwined with 8 successful thought leaders who will present on different aspects of productively living your dream now. Take a break from your routine, get out of your normal day-to-day, and discover what is truly possible for you. If not now, when? Proceeds benefit our local youth suicide prevention program. When you sign up now, you not only get to discover how to live your best life, your investment can save a life. Go to thatcuriositything.com and sign up today. That's thatcuriositything.com. Still curious? Again, thatcuriositything.com.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 2nd show. Each week, I share expert advice and inside knowledge on how today's events affect our local economy and how it affects your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, you can call into the show. I can answer any questions that you have, connect you with the guests that I have, 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now and for the entire show, Sandi Tampa and Erin Hoppe with Windermere Bellevue Commons. We're talking about real estate success stories, and just left and took us to commercial with Erin and really being able to help hold hands in different generations through the selling process and the buyer process, and how you can bring all of this together and make it successful. Sandi, let's go ahead and talk about, I love dogs. I have a dog. I love animals, period. But I know that you've got a recent story, a buyer and a letter and a dog. What was that successful story?
So I have a client who was in a multiple offer situation. Gosh, I think there were 15 offers. So
golly.
I know, it was crazy. Well, the house was underpriced. So, and my buyer wanted this home, and the sellers were obviously animal lovers, and so there's a lot of buyer letters going around, and that's a great way just to put a personal spin on an offer and that sort of thing. And frankly, it can get into little fair housing issues sometimes, but we won't go there. But so my buyer put a picture of her and her dog and just wrote about how this house was perfect for her, and she was going to rescue more dogs, and the fact that there were no stairs and they were older dogs, and it worked. The seller was endeared to my buyer because of this letter, and gave her the opportunity to meet an offer that they wanted the terms of, but they would prefer to work with my buyer.
Yeah, and on that note, Sandi, when we're talking about the needs of the seller and connecting with them, a lot of times as a buyer, you don't have the opportunity to connect with them on that level, but you do have an opportunity to find out with the right representation as your realtor to find out what's important to the seller and what their needs are. Would you guys agree that there are, so give me any examples that you have on, because I think a lot of realtors are not asking the questions to the other agent to find out about what the seller's needs are.
Well, absolutely. That's the first step in the negotiating process is talking to the listing agent and trying to find out what are the priorities to the seller.
Yes.
And what are they looking for? What are they hoping for? And you can sometimes assume if it's vacant, of course they want a quick close, but you never know. And then also when you're going through the home, really paying attention to what the seller's done to the home to make it special.
Sure.
And if you can help articulate that I'm going to treasure that as well, that's a great communication in those letters that you send.
It makes total sense. So a buyer couldn't just mail a letter to a seller, could they?
I think a buyer could do anything they wanted. Yeah.
So, Erin, there's a lot of tragedies that can happen in life. Divorce, hopefully not death, but the reality is life things happen, and you wouldn't think that you could actually have any type of successful ending result with life tragedies. Can you share? Because I know that you have a few of them. Can you share one of them with my listeners?
Sure. We do a lot of working with people in transition. I think it's just part of what we do. And I don't know why it just seems lately, maybe it's my age. A lot of people are going through that. But about a few months ago, I had a couple going through a pretty nasty divorce, actually. It was really difficult. They had 3 kids, and there was one of the people didn't want to sell, the other one did. So I had to work with both of them one-on-one, and worked out a way to get the husband out of the house into a rental, and really listen to what the mom's concerns were. Usually it's about the kids and where's daycare going to be, where's school going to be. We don't want to change friends.
Yeah.
They don't want the kids to be stressed out with the sign in the yard. And so I suggested that they go on vacation for 2 weeks while we get the house on the market.
What a great
idea. They went to Disneyland, and 3 kids were having a great time. We had the sign up and key box on and did our prep work right away. Sold the house before they got back, removed the sign and the key box. So that was her fear, was having that, I guess, visual represented pain to her. So we took care of all of that, even though she did not really want to move. We arranged for another rental for her as well. They had to financially move, so it was required. And we just made it so that it was a transition that was easier for them, being able to get them out of town and do those things while they're gone and have everything basically finished. Kind of alleviated all that stress.
And that's amazing. It's looking at each specific particular, and that's why they call you the real estate therapist. Now I totally get it. It's just really finding out where the needs are, and you took something that could have been devastating, a devastating memory for the family, for the kids, for the mom having her kids have to watch that, and instead they got, suggestion, took a great trip. And so just really, again, bringing in that personal touch that both of you have to help your buyers and sellers go through this process successful, even though it's something that you would never think you could have a successful end to.
Right.
Sandi, issues with a property. So I know that there's a lot of issues, and I think there's a lot you really don't even know about, or you hear people get into the house and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, what in the heck did I do? And I know that you've had a story with an issue, pretty bad issue with a roof on one of your buyers that were going to buy the house. How did that become successful, and how did you assist in making that all okay? Because that could have been a complete disaster.
Oh my gosh, this is a great story. So my buyers...
Almost as I laughed with my water there.
These buyers, and they're millennials, so they're very tech savvy. They did their research on the sellers as what's happening out there, and that's very normal. Well, these sellers have a Facebook account that is not, was not at the time, it is now, secured. And so my buyers were able to look at their photos and their posts on Facebook and come to find that the roof that was put on this summer was put on by the sellers. Okay, we thought it was done professionally, but it was done by the sellers. Okay, not that big of a deal. We had the inspector there where we informed him of it and wanted him just to look at it extra carefully. And just for fun, we showed the picture of the seller standing on the roof. Well, lo and behold, the inspector notices that the layment paper, the paper that you put, that's probably not the right term for it, but the paper between the house and the shingles was the wrong kind of paper. It was the paper that you would put in vertical siding, so for siding on a house. So it offers no protection whatsoever.
Wow.
So
don't post stuff on Facebook.
There you go.
Note to self.
Oh, it was so complicated. We didn't want to believe it was true. And we went through this thing and we finally, and that was a little awkward confronting the listing agent and the sellers. And, they just made a mistake and they didn't realize what had happened. But at the end of the day, we got the deal together. We got a new roof on the house. But oh my gosh, without those photos,
Yes.
my buyers would have bought a seemingly new roof.
Yeah.
That the damage would have taken about 10 years, and it would have been just some serious structural damage caused by this wrong paper
Oh my
being under
gosh.
the roof.
Wow. Just looking back and going, thank goodness.
I know.
Yeah,
Oh my
you definitely,
gosh.
and not that you have the opportunity to do that every time to see behind the scenes and find out what's happening. But I guess the moral of that is just really to find out about the house, find out the history of the house. And there's a lot of people waiving finance or waiving, well, that too, but a lot of people waiving inspection contingencies right now. And if you got to do it, I get that, because it's the only way you're going to get a house possibly, but get the inspection ahead of time, do a pre-inspection so that you understand where that home is coming from. So Erin, timing is a big part of a successful closing, and understanding how to navigate through this, working with a realtor that knows how to ask the right questions to get the story is huge. Share something there with me.
I think the story we were talking about earlier was about a couple that was getting ready to retire, and they had a condo to sell. They called me in January and wanted to sell in May. But in listening to them, it wasn't that they wanted to sell their house in May. They really wanted to be moving in May.
Okay.
Knowing that most people need their cash to be able to move forward and do other things, I suggested that they go ahead and list the house in February, going through our process with the staging and the photography. And I knew we would probably get multiple offers, because at the time there were very few. I think there were only 2 other condos that were on the market. So I didn't know what was going to happen in April or May. So I said, let's go ahead and do it now. We got, I think, $15,000 over asking price.
Wow.
Got a free rent back for a couple months so that they were able to close at the end of February and then have their cash for a couple months, and they're just moving now. So
Yes.
and they're able to retire, and they had their cash for 60 days.
So it's asking questions, but it's also asking the questions the right way to make sure that they understand what you're asking, because we're in the business and we do this day in and day out. So we understand everything in the timing, but they may not understand exactly what what the timing really means and what it takes.
And they don't know the options. And
Exactly.
Sandi and I both have gone through a process called ninja selling, and one of the questions they ask is, if you could wave a magic wand, what would that look like? And people don't think that that's a true question, because it's pretend.
Sure.
And all sorts of stuff comes out. So we learn a lot by just asking that one question.
I love that. And, we talk about timing as well. I'd like to, hear from either one of you about, on the buyer side with timing. An issue with timing can be when they're forced to have to buy and sell. They can't hold on to their current house. They've got to sell that first for whatever reason, need the equity, can't qualify for 2 mortgage payments, whatever it is. And there's some timing there. Do you guys have any recent story that you can share or advice that you have for people going through that process? Because that's hard right now, being that there's not a lot of properties available. So you don't really know how quickly you're going to get your offer, and how important is it that you really strategize correctly to make this all happen?
Gosh, the move up buy, when you have to sell before you buy it, it can be tricky. And
so any tips that you would have, Sandi, for somebody that might be going through that right now?
Well, what Erin orchestrated with her clients is perfect, because it's the right market to be able to get a rent back in. So you can have a 30 to 45 day close with maybe a 1 to 2 month rent back, and so that'll give you that much time to go hopefully find and buy something. But it's tough for a buyer. You might have a couple of houses that you don't get, so it can take some time.
So here's what you should do as a buyer is, before I take you to commercial, here is an exercise and an encouragement that I would do if you're thinking of getting into real estate. Whatever challenge you think that you might have, just as Erin asked, what if you waved a magic wand, what do you want? On that side. And if you actually had the exact opposite happen, and if the worst case thing could happen, what would that be in your own personal scenario? Ask your representation, ask your realtor what they would do in that situation, and they should be able to have answers for you that they've worked with and walked you through that process. If not, you might be with the wrong representation. So just having that experience is key. And we are going to take it to commercial. Coming up next, we're going to stay right here with Sandi and Erin. We're going to continue our conversation about success stories, and we actually might bring in a little bit of tips, so you definitely don't want to miss right after this commercial break, 11:50 a.m. KKNW.
Curiosity changes the world. What are you curious about? What if you could discover how to be more, do more, and have more? Not sometime in the future, in the right now. You will discover practical tools on May 7th at the Tea Palace in Renton that create hope, growth, and purpose in the moment. Join Ringmaster Danny Wynn as he takes you on a musical, entertaining, and transformative adventure intertwined with 8 successful thought leaders who will present on different aspects of productively living your dream now. Take a break from your routine, get out of your normal day-to-day, and discover what is truly possible for you. If not now, when? Proceeds benefit our local youth suicide prevention program. When you sign up now, you not only get to discover how to live your best life, your investment can save a life. Go to thatcuriositything.com and sign up today. That's thatcuriositything.com. Still curious? Again, thatcuriositything.com.
Every day, more than 1.4 million American lives are disrupted by Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. This year alone, 70,000 new cases will be diagnosed, and more of those are children. Nearly 75% of patients with Crohn's disease will require 1 or more surgeries at some point in their lives. Those are the facts, but they don't speak to the daily realities of living with Crohn's or colitis. Excruciating pain, a lifetime of medication, and days when they can't even get out of bed. There's a good chance you know someone suffering with Crohn's or colitis. Someone like me. I'm Amy Brenneman, and I'm asking you to support the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. CCFA was created to help millions of us cope and to find cures. Visit ccfa.org today to learn more, donate, or join an event. It's time to face the facts and reach out to help someone you know at ccfa.org.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 22nd show. I am dedicated to my listeners, providing you with the tools needed to make informed decisions on all matters when it comes to your money. If you're listening to my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, you can call into my show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150, or online at themoneyhour.com. Entire show has been all about Sandi, Tampa, and Erin Hoppe, and all of their many success stories. I just wish we had a few shows to talk about success stories, because it's been a lot of fun doing that. And Erin, I want to just go right over to you and talk about on the selling side and representing your sellers, because it is a really crazy market for buyers because of the lack of inventory, which puts sellers in the benefit and really being in a great market for them to sell. But the reality is not all sellers are in a great position, because they may not be selling a great home. There might be some challenges or something that's unique about that home that is not going to be attracting the buyers. And the reality is majority are attracted to this. And if you've got something off on its own and unique, you may actually have a little more difficult time. So how were you able to turn an unusual, unique property into a successful ending?
Well, I think you have to get creative. I mean, oftentimes it's not that it's a bad house. It might just be a unique architecture, different floor plan. It might be a target market for, younger kids, but maybe it's master on the main and bedrooms far away from that. So sometimes it's not a perfect fit for all buyers.
Okay.
I've got one right now that I've just did something really creative where we did a client that was from out of the country and didn't even have a social security number yet, has money, can't get the loan, went ahead and did a pretty hefty down payment, non-refundable, $50,000 non-refundable deposit, and is going to rent the house for $4,500 a month and be able to kind of eliminate the burden of maintenance on the property. It's a pretty good size acreage property that my clients are having a tough time managing because they live an hour away. So we were able to get people in there, rent it for $45 a month, and then in 8 months they'll be able to close. So
nice.
That's
so
how
coming
we
up
solved
with
it.
coming up with a solution.
Yeah.
Having an answer. There's always an answer. It's just finding out what the answer is going to be.
Sure.
And helping counsel around that.
Yeah, stepping outside the box. Sometimes you got to be creative and look for something different.
Yeah, you guys step outside the box a lot of times to pull things together and make it happen. Sandi, I know in the new construction arena, and when you're talking about pre-sale, people are buying condos or homes before they've even started construction, and the reality of it is timelines in that arena never seem to work out, and most of the time those timelines are actually extended. And you've got a really awesome, it depends on what's happening in the market and what's going on, but an awesome story that it looked like it was going to be a bad thing, but it actually made them a lot of money.
It did. So it was, so my clients put an offer on a new construction community with a close date that was over a year away, which is a really long time. So, and the journey was arduous. It was just a very long, we had close date extension after extension, and we ended up closing 6 months late. So a total of an 18-month escrow. I know, it's real estate deals aren't meant to last that long. But at the end of the day, they got their beautiful home and they were able to secure pricing that was 18 months prior to them buying, which was 10 or 15% under what the market was currently bearing for their house.
Unbelievable.
In addition to that, they were able to stay in their home until they moved into their new home. So they were able to sell their home 10 to 15% higher than what they would have.
Oh my gosh. And I imagine they probably got a little better interest rate, because who would have thought that interest rates would have gone down again, Unbelievable. So you just never know. I mean, if it's going to be the right thing and it's supposed to be the right thing, everything is going to work out okay. So what an amazing story. I wish I was those buyers.
No kidding. Yeah. So it was a tough journey.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it would have been a lot easier journey if you just know how it's going to end up at the end. And that's what, just don't worry about it. You're going through and things happen and nothing's perfect in life. One of my quotes is life is balanced, and there's no exceptions to that rule. So, when you've got some challenges going on, just recognize there's got to be something of equal. Just don't get stuck over here and know, things are going to work out. They're surely not going to get any better if you stress out about things, right?
Absolutely.
It is what it is. And in this situation, it was a really good, it is what it is. So we've talked about a lot of different success stories, and I think that it was a really unique show to be able to do that. And I want to end this last segment here with my listeners in talking about tips on the buyer side, because all of these things that we've got time to address and talk about and have a conversation around can either be a successful result or they can be a not successful result. And what are, in this market as a buyer, because that's really what people are challenged with in the buying market, again, because of the lack of inventory, and there's just a lot of people that want to buy a home with all of the benefits to doing so right now. And there's a lot of creative things that you need to do as a buyer agent. So I'm going to have you put completely your buyer hat on and take your seller hat off, because both of you work with both buyers and sellers. So let's just focus on helping our buyers that are listening right now on making their offer stronger. Waiving inspection. What tips can you give on that?
Well, gosh, I think that's a tricky one, right?
Okay.
So
how do you counsel through that process?
I have very strong feelings that if the home has been pre-inspected, so that's where the seller does a pre-inspection, and using that report, if they feel comfortable with it and they've done the research on the inspector, that can be a great tool to use to then waive inspection.
Okay.
Another tool is doing a pre-inspection yourself as the buyer, hiring an inspector. You do the inspection prior to submitting your offer. There are some buyers in this market that will waive inspection completely without either of those two, and it makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah, when we talked about the story with the roof, I mean, you really have to know what you're getting into, unless you're some rich investor just come in and pay cash, and if you lost a few $100,000, it's not that big of a deal. You want to know what that history of that home has been and where it's going in the future. So, but there are strategies, as you'd mentioned, the pre-inspection. If the seller's doing getting their an inspection that the buyers can review. So those are some good things. Erin, what are your thoughts?
You mean on inspection?
Yes, on waiving inspection.
Same as Sandi. I think it's important that you have the opportunity to get as much information as you can. And at all. I mean, just everything you can find out. I think you can also do a partial inspection where you can get the gist of things depending on how old the house is. I think, too, certain neighborhoods have reputations, certain builders, if it's, 8 years old, 10 years old, you kind of just being in the business as long as we know kind of what to expect if there's failed windows or siding issues,
Good point.
certain things that are recalled. A lot of the inspectors would know what to expect on a certain house. It's not the same every time, but I really recommend that everyone get their own inspection.
So what about an appraisal? I've seen a handful of times in this market on appraisal that they're now, knock on wood, I'm not having appraisals that are coming in low at value, but I have a lot of my real estate partners that are concerned if they're going to come on value, and they're actually, because they're bidding up on this home, and so they're going in with an addendum that the buyer agrees that they will actually pay a certain price. So let's just say that the house was listed at $500 and they ended up getting it for $550, and everybody feels that $525 might be the target of what that home is valued for. So the buyer is putting in an addendum, and I think it's actually something that your company came up with their own addendum for this, to where they are saying, well, we'll pay that $550. So if the appraisal comes in less than $525, we're not doing anything. But as long as it comes to $525, we're going to pay that extra $25,000. What's your guys' thought on that? Are you seeing it becoming more popular?
I had a huge appraisal difference. That was about $680,000 was the purchase price. Appraisal came in at $550.
Whoa.
But where was that at?
It was in Echo Lake. And the ironic thing was every house that was on the appraisal, my buyers had seen. And they disagreed with the appraisal. They thought that the house was priced right. They felt comfortable with it, and they moved forward and bought the house without it. They didn't need the difference in money, I suppose. You know, it was more along the lines they could do it. So not everybody isn't able to do it. It's just a matter of if they choose to do it.
They choose to do it.
I think it's just all about the information that I give my buyers up front. This could be a problem, but you're ultimately the one that decides what the value is, because that's buyer and seller, who wants to buy and who wants to sell. And
exactly.
Appraisers sometimes come from Puyallup and they're doing something in Arlington, or, you know, who knows.
Yeah.
So they don't always know what they're doing.
Yeah, with multiple offers, it's how much, how soon, and how certain.
Okay.
So trying to, you know, with waiving the inspection, trying to take away that uncertainty. Then the next one is appraisal, and trying to write in that the buyer will pay up to $10,000 or up to $25,000 between purchase price and appraised value, or sometimes even removing that appraisal contingency, that appraisal portion of the financing contingency completely.
So it's really about just listing those options for your buyer, educating the pros and cons, and then figuring out what works for them and where they're comfortable. What about earnest money? What are your tips on earnest money and what they should be putting down for that amount? And really, can someone go in with a low earnest money and actually get their offer accepted when you're bidding against someone that has a higher earnest money?
Well, it's tough. I think a lot of people, you don't have to use these contingencies. And a lawyer would say, well, you would never want to do that. But it's really at the buyer's choice. It's not for me to decide how much risk they're willing to take. So we talk about it. So if it's a house that's $1 million and they put $100,000 earnest money down and they waive their financing contingency, even though they still need to get a loan, they're risking $100,000. So that's their choice. And if they want to get the house, sometimes you have to make an aggressive stance. They're not going to lose money unless they back out.
Exactly.
And so it's really up to them. And if they feel comfortable with their financing, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. It's about giving them the options and letting them know, instead of just having, this is exactly what I think you should do, but here's what your options are, and here's the pros and cons.
Yeah. And how bad do you want the house?
Exactly.
They might not really want it that bad, or they might really want it. So it's not for me to get in the way.
You know, go ahead, Sandi.
Oh, well, the key, so earnest money is, it's nothing that costs you anything as long as you don't default.
Exactly.
So it's part of your forward payment of future payment of the house. So it's a tactic I use, because if you can, so industry standard is 1% to 3%. So the higher your earnest money, the better. If you're going to do some risky, like not having a financing contingency or anything risky, you know, you might want to ratchet that down.
Okay.
But another option is to release the earnest money. We just accepted, a seller of mine, we had multiple offers, and we just accepted this morning an offer that released $2,000 of the earnest money upon mutual acceptance and made it a non-refundable deposit. Yeah. So they now...
It's interesting that we keep coming, the real estate community, I mean, keeps coming up with creative ideas to be more competitive. That is awesome.
Yeah,
so instead
it's-
of giving up the whole thing, they're just saying, hey, we're going to release a couple grand. Out of how much earnest money did they put down?
So we have a total of $20,000 earnest money,
Okay.
which is about 4%, so
Okay,
high.
yes.
We get $2,000 upon mutual acceptance.
Okay.
And then we're going to get $8,000 more when the appraisal's done.
So a tiered earnest
Yeah.
money agreement. Wow, that is awesome.
Yep.
You know, so again, just laying it out, and nobody is really, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it on my end in the mortgage side yet. So having something that's a little bit different, putting your offer, making it a little bit different than the other one, standing out, you know, can make or break and
Absolutely.
get that deal accepted. And I also, just for you as buyers, I mean, waiving your earnest money, waiving your finance contingency, which means you're releasing your earnest money if something happens. And it's just important to understand that whole process of what you're doing. It's not only if your financing falls through, but if anything happens to that contract, like it doesn't close on time, it's going to be important to make sure that you're communicating with your mortgage professional and make sure that they're going to be able to close the loan. Because if for some reason you waive your finance contingency and release your earnest money, if that mortgage closes a day late, or if it's not going to close, should close today, and it's not going to close until tomorrow, the seller can decide to take that earnest money and go take a backup offer that might be in a higher position than what you were paying for the home. Now, chances that they would do that, maybe not. Maybe they'll just go ahead and extend it for you for a day, but you've released $5,000, $10,000, who knows, maybe $20,000 earnest money. So just understanding and communicating with all parties to make sure you're not putting yourself at risk. And really, that's what it's all about. And that's why I just thank both of you again for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And that is the show for the day. This is your host, Tina Mitchell, wrapping the show up. I want to thank all of you for listening, and I'm going to be back same time, same place, right here at 11:50 a.m. KKNW. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks.
The preceding program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit absoluteloans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.